Blessed be everyone. Blessed be Dwight. How are you? It's good to see you too. And welcome to all of those of you who are getting onto the chat and those of you watching the replay. Today we're talking about the elements and how you can incorporate the elements into your magic and also into your rituals, and a little bit about how you can do that with your meditation practices as well. So I'm just waiting for people to join in on the chat. If you're watching the replay, welcome to the replay as well. Also, if you're new to the channel, welcome to the channel. Here we talk about all things Wicca and witchcraft, magic, ritual, tarot, and shadow work. So if that's what you're interested in, then definitely hit the like button and subscribe so that the channel gets out there more, and share the videos too if you know that there's anyone who may also enjoy these kinds of videos. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Sandra. I've been in the craft for over 30 years now, and I like to merge the magical practices, the witchcraft practices, with other forms of energy healing to help people use magic in a way that actually brings you a sense of connection to yourself and nature, and to the realms within and without yourself. So it's a within and a without job. I mean, essentially, it's all a within thing, but it's also connecting us and helping us feel like we're connected in some way, and that our lives have a meaning, that they have a meaning for us, and that there's a purpose to our lives, and how the craft can do that. So I like to combine the ancient wisdom with modern energy healing like EFT. Uh, and it also helps you connect to your inner magic as well, and manifesting your true potential at the same time. So it doesn't matter whether you're new to the craft or whether you've been involved in it for some time. I'm sure there's things that you can get from watching this channel. I know that when I came back to witchcraft after having a few years away from it, when I was exploring other traditions, YouTube was only in its very infancy at that stage. I think this was about 2010 or something, and I used to watch people on YouTube talking about witchcraft as well, because it just gave me a sense of not being by myself and being part of a community, because there are other people out there talking about it. Okay, if you do want to know where to start your witchcraft practice, I do have a free video. It's called How to Start Your Witchcraft Practice, and it just gives you a blueprint. So if you've already uh, read books, you already know the basics of what witches do. You know that we do spells, you know that maybe we set up circles and we work with the elements and various things, but you're just not sure, how do I put all of that together and actually learn this stuff and actually put it into a practice? The video, How to Start Your Witchcraft Practice, will give you that blueprint of where to start and how you can fit it all into your learning over roughly a 12-month process. Okay. And at the end of the video, the live stream, I'll let you know if you want to take that further and actually learn Wicca and witchcraft with me as well, because I do offer an online course, and there's a special bonus going on at the moment with that as well. Okay. Hello, Megan. Hello, Raspberry Moon. Hello, Joe. Blessed be everybody. If you're watching the replay, certainly comment in the comments field. And of course, if you're watching the chat, just jump in with any comments that are relevant, I should say, to the topic, so that we can have a bit of a discussion. If you've got any questions, or you just want to share your own experiences and how you work with the elements, if you're already working with them, that would be absolutely awesome as well. So before I started the video today, I pulled a tarot card because I thought it might be fun to incorporate a tarot message in this too. And I got here, I'm just going to check this comes out in the camera, the Justice card. And this is from the Anna Kay deck. It's an interesting deck. And it's more of a psychological deck, this one. The interpretations tend to come more from a psychological perspective, I think, because of her background. And this is the Justice card. So this is a message for all of us today. And some of the key points that I wanted to pick out about this card is about seeking balance, I think, more than anything. That is the message for today, seeking balance in our own personal lives, especially when we're going through a lot of astrological, all sorts of astrological occurrences at the moment. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot going on in the world around us at the moment as a result of all of this. We're going through massive changes. We're changing from old paradigms to new paradigms, and there's all sorts of, you know, convolutions, permutations, and all sorts of weird things coming out of this, and we don't really know where it's going to end up. Being able to maintain that personal balance, being able to just walk through the crowd and maintain your own centering and your own equilibrium is very important at this time. So I think that's the main message of the Justice card today. Also, being able to make fair decisions, so weighing things up and making decisions based on a sense of fairness. So, balancing also your intuition with your logical thought at the same time. Taking responsibility, of course, for our actions and realizing that we are the creators in the universe. We're creating our own lives, and we have the ability to take a lot more responsibility for what goes on, what happens to us, which is actually empowering for us. It's not about blaming ourselves. It's about taking back our power so that we're not giving our power away to those whom we feel have treated us wrong or done, injustices, so to speak. It's taking back our power and understanding that, okay, they certainly have influenced the situation and maybe even created it, but what can I do now to take back my power and take hold of this in my own life? Evaluating situations objectively too is another one for the Justice card. It's a card of karma. So thinking of the Hermetic principle of cause and effect, that every cause has an effect and every effect has a cause. Again, we're creating with the universe, we're co-creating. So how we're involved in what goes on around us in our lives. And it's a card of education as well. So educating ourselves. And I guess that's what we're doing today with regards to learning about the elements. Okay. Hi, Spock fan. Hi, Shane. Blessed be. So, what we're going to talk about today is what the elements are, what their qualities are, what their associations are, how you can use them in ritual, how you can use them in magic, doing magical altars or elemental altars if you've got space to do that, and you can have a permanent setup, and also meditation with the elements. Now, I teach in module, I think it's module 3 or module 4 of the Mystery Witch School 101 Academy. I teach about the elements, and there's lots of meditations and exercises that people do to familiarize themselves with the elements in my course. So this is sort of, I guess, coming a little bit from that, and also some other ideas that I've added along the way, and I will talk more about that course at the end of this video for those of you who are interested in taking this further. So we'll start with a definition of the elements. And the 4 elements are, and even if you're brand new to this, you've probably heard them before anyway, because they were used a lot in antiquity: earth, air, fire, and water. Also associated with the different directions, so north, south, east, and west. And these are foundational energies, you could call them, consciousness, that represent different aspects of nature and the building blocks of nature. Everything in nature, including ourselves. We also contain the 4 elements as well, and they were also known as the 4 humors when it came to looking at different personality types back in the day. So you may have heard of the sanguine, the phlegmatic, the choleric, and I can't remember what the other one was. But they were sort of personality and also physical characteristics and health aspects of particular different types of people. And this was something that people used to do a lot and talk about a lot, not that long ago in Western culture. And now we're connected also to the elements. So the elements have played a huge role in our past and also in our present. So they've all got their own qualities and their own correspondences and associations in magical practice. And that's why we work with them. So we'll start with going through what those qualities and what those associations are now. And I'll start with the element of earth, because earth is what we're experiencing pretty tangibly. It's a solid, uh, very solid, very grounded, obviously, element. So its qualities are stability, grounding, think strength, abundance. Think of the earth herself. You've got mountains, you've got rock, you've also got liquid earth, molten earth. You've got the lush plant life and animal life on the earth, even though you also have deserts as well. And when we're wanting to feel grounded, if we're feeling we're too much up in our head, maybe we're stressed, anxious, and we're too up here, we want to ground ourselves and bring ourselves back down to earth. That's what we do. We connect energetically to the element of earth, and that can help us feel more calm, more balanced, more centered, and supported. The earth is the support underneath us, the strength and the support of the earth and the weight of the earth underneath us, and we're connected to the earth through gravity pulling us towards earth. And earth as an element or an elemental is associated with the physical world and material abundance. It's also associated with fertility and with growth. The direction that generally is associated with the element of earth is the north in the northern hemisphere and the south in the southern hemisphere. Earth tends to be cold. So it's cold and dry. That's its sort of temperament, cold and dry. And so it's always associated with the poles for that reason. Even though the poles are icy, there's a coldness to them and more of a solid sort of feel to them. So Earth is, I haven't really seen Earth anywhere else than north in the northern hemisphere and south in the southern hemisphere. So when we're creating a circle and we're calling in the elements, depending on which hemisphere you're in, you're going to call in the element of earth at one of those quarters, and it's most likely going to be north if you're in the northern hemisphere and south if you're in the southern hemisphere. And the way that I teach it in Mystery Witch School is that the season of earth, so if you're associating the elements with the seasonal rites or the Sabbats and the cycles of the sun, then earth is associated with winter, particularly the winter solstice, because once again, it's cold and it's dry. We have our dry season here where I live in winter. That's really the only way we know it's winter here, is that it's dry, although it's raining today. But it is the beginning of spring here. So it's got that dry energy with it as well. And when you're doing magic, I will talk a bit more about the magic, but if you are going to use earth and do earth-based magic, you can use earth and call it in for spells for prosperity, for protection, for stability, for health, and work with the element of earth that way. But I'll go into a little bit more about that later. Okay. Joe, I find myself working with the elements regardless of my intentions. It feels as if you can't practice the craft without using the elements. And I heard that spirit is another one of the elements. Yeah, in a way it is. A spirit's sort of, the elements are very much belonging to the earth. Like they're kind of like the foundations of the creations on planet Earth and in sort of 3D. And spirit is sort of where it's kind of like over that. Like, they're elements of spirit, they're aspects of spirit. So if you're looking at the pentagram, for example, or the witch's pyramid, you've got spirit at the top, and then you've got the elements underneath in the pentagram. And spirit is always at the top because it's what all of these elements are really composed of. They're composed of spirit, but in different manifestations of spirit, or different functions of spirit is probably a good way to put it. They're functions of spirit, the same as the deities carry out various different functions of the divine, and they manifest those functions in different ways to each other. Sometimes they overlap and cross over a lot, but some of them have more specific functions that we often associate with the various different deities, and that's why we often work with one deity for one thing and another deity for something else. And that seems to be the case all around the world when it comes to polytheism. So yes, you can't really do magic without the elements because they're always going to be involved. Whether we invite them in and consciously you work with them, or we're not consciously working with them, they always seem to be a part of it, because they're just a part of life. The other element is the element of air. And air has qualities, it's associated with thought, with the speed of thought and the intellect, with communication, with clarity, with movement as well. It's quite swift, or it can be still, but it's always associated with movement and the moving through space, I guess you could say. It's associated with the mind, with knowledge, inspiration, with freedom as well. And air, particularly in tarot, is associated with the conflicts. And the conflict is associated with the thought aspect, because conflict tends to come from thought and the way that we think about things and the way that we perceive things. And that can create conflict. So that's why the swords are full of conflict in the tarot, because it's really working within that realm of communication and that realm of thought. And if we're not paying attention to our thoughts and understanding them, where they come from, sometimes questioning them, questioning the validity of them, and also questioning whether they're working for us or not, the communication, they will affect our communication, and that can create conflict. Or it can do the opposite. It can mend any conflict. Okay, Shane, it may sound a bit silly, but can you do a video on a basic altar? Not sure if mine is correct for what doing. Okay. Yep, I think I have got a video, but it's probably a really old one. Hi, Megan. Saying hello to everybody. So if you're doing spells using the element of air, you're going to be doing spells for wisdom, for maybe taking an exam, or memory, clarity, creativity as well, because the air they're all creative. All of the elements are creative, essentially. I don't think you can have the elements not being creative, because they're part of creation. But they're just got the different aspects of creation. So if you're looking at creativity with the air element, you could be looking at singing, for example, where you're using your voice, you're using a lot of air instruments. So if you play flute or saxophone, you are working with the element of the air there. It's about communication and about travel, and it's associated with the season of spring. And when it comes to the directions, this is where it can get confusing for people, because the directions can be different depending on what tradition you're following, what culture you're following. And some people even like to work with the elements according to where the elements are physically, where they live. So air and water often change depending on who's talking about them. When it comes to traditional Western esoteric tradition, air is always located in the east, no matter where you are, because that's where it sort of came out of. It came out of Eastern philosophy and Eastern esoteric wisdom back in the day. So air is always associated with the east and the rising sun. It's like the beginning of the day, the sun rises in the east, and it's associated with the element of air because air is associated with spring, new beginnings, new birth, the breath of life, and hence why it's associated with the east. Even if you live where I do, and to the east is water. It's to do more with the energy of the sun rising and the breath of life and the new day, the breath of life of the new day, of the element of air in the east. But some people will swap them over depending on tradition and depending on where they may live. So you may see that there's variations there. And it seems to work. So I don't know if the elements are really set in where they have to be when it comes to creating circles and setting up directions. They seem to be quite flexible. The next element is fire. And fire is, well, what is fire? It is, passion, it is transformation, it's fast energy, it's willpower. And that energy of fire is connected directly to the energy of the sun. So hence the fire element is usually always where the sun is going to be in its strongest position in the sky, which in the southern hemisphere is the north in winter particularly, and in the northern hemisphere it's south. So that's why we place fire in either the north or south depending on what hemisphere you're in, because that's where the sun is the strongest when it starts to move away from. In the summer solstice, it's directly ahead, and then after that, it starts to go towards either the south or north, depending on where you are. Of course, if you're on the equator, you're not going to see that so much. But if you're the further away from the equator you get, the more you'll notice that. And that's why we associate fire with either the north or the south, depending on the hemisphere, because it's connected to that energy of the sun, and the sun is a symbol of fire because of its heat and energy. And fire is associated with courage and with strength and purification, destruction as well. All of the elements can be destructive. They've got their creative aspect and their destructive aspect. And renewal. And the reason that fire is often associated with courage and strength is because when you're making steel, for example, like a sword, which is traditionally associated with the element of air in some traditions, and in other traditions it's associated with the element of fire because it's created from fire in a way. To get the really fine steel, it's put through the fire. And so fire is associated with making things hard and refining things, making things solid, making things strong, and that refining of somebody. So we'd say, you've been through the fire, going through the fire, that kind of thing. It's associated with the summer energy because summer, of course, is heat and fire. Fire is hot and dry. So whereas earth is cold and dry, fire is hot and dry. And I forgot to mention that air is hot and dry. It's hot and wet. So it's sort of the opposite of water, air. So fire is associated with the summer. And if you're going to do spells with using fire magic, you're definitely doing spells for, it can be for love, it can be for, but fiery kind of love, passion kind of love, courage, empowerment, confidence, change. If you're wanting things to change quickly, fire is a good one to work with there for a fast change. And in the tarot, it's associated also with spirituality and drive, the drive to create, the drive to do things, and having that energy behind that drive. And charisma, it's associated with that too, often in the tarot as well. And then we've got water, which is the element that's associated with emotions, with intuition, with psychic development, with healing, with fluidity. It's associated with the subconscious mind, so the what we can't see, and we often talk about going down into the depths of the subconscious mind and going deep in the subconscious mind because it is like diving into the waters. Sometimes the water is clear, other times the waters are murky in the subconscious. It's associated with dreams, purification. We purify with water so that when we're setting up a circle, we'll often bring the salt, which represents earth, and water together and sprinkle the space, the circle space, with salt water to cleanse and purify it. We also do the same with the incense, which represents fire and air. And water represents the flow of life and the artistic creativity, whereas fire is sort of the passionate creativity. Water can be the more artistic creativity. And in the realm of the caring professions and those more watery aspects of life that are fluid and that flow. Water can be treacherous, but water can also be very still as well. It's generally associated with the West because if you think of sailing across the waters to the other side, to the other realm, when somebody passes, they're crossing the waters. There's the energy of water is often associated with death and with the endings or the autumn period or late afternoon if you're looking at the daily cycle. So water represents the setting of the sun. It's in the west is the setting of the sun, and there's a connection there between water and that death aspect. So hence the reason why water has been associated with the west, and also that would have been where water probably was in the countries where this actually originated too. Some people like to switch things around, as I said before. If they're living on the east coast of Australia, for example, and there's water at the east, then they will switch the water to the east and maybe air to the west because the west is where the really cold southwesterly winds come from, for example. So I know people that do that in this neck of the woods where I live as well because they're working literally with the elements and on a physical level with the elements. So you can use water for spells for healing as well, love, improving your intuition, improving your psychic abilities, and also for emotional balance if you're wanting to do shadow work as well. It's a good element to work with too. So we invoke these elements to bring in their specific energies into rituals to help us with our rituals, to help us with our spells, and also meditation and to align with nature. It's one of the ways we connect with nature is through the elements. And even just going to a beach on a windy day and feeling the wind running through you and around you, and then hearing the waves sort of crashing against the shore because the wind is rounding up the water can be a really great experience of water, of air. And then if you're standing on the sand, you've got the earth below you. If the sun's out, then you've got the fire of the sun, and you can really feel the force of these four elements when you're in various different locations, particularly if it's a windy day and you're able to experience all four of them. It's pretty powerful and pretty magical. Various different places in nature have a lot of energy because of the energy of the elements that are connected to those places. So if you're on a gorge, for example, up on top of a gorge, up on a cliff, and you can hear the waves of the deep water crushing, just crashing up against the rock. You can feel the wind's just blowing in. That's a lot of energy to do your magic. Like, you can do some real powerful magic with that kind of energy. You've got the air carrying it, and you've got the water there with its energy too. So going into nature and just seeing where the elements are sitting at the particular point in time are wonderful ways of connecting with them, and you can also use that for your magic. So these are some of the ways that you can incorporate the elements into your rituals. Okay. You could set up an elemental altar. And if you've got space where you can do this, that's great. You can have each of the elements at their particular quarters. So if you're doing more traditional and you're sticking to the more common way of working with the elements, you would have an air altar in the east, a water altar in the west, and then depending on what hemisphere you're in, you would have your fire and your earth in their particular location as well, so that when you are setting up a circle, or if you're working with the elements, particularly, you could do a working at that particular altar if you're working with air, for example, or you just bring the elements in and they've already got representations of them at each of the quarters. Other people like to just do drawings at each of the quarters in a space. I don't know if you can see my quarters. They're just up behind me where I'm kind of pointing. I've got the triangles. So they're the triangles belonging to the elements up in the top shelf there. And from this view here, you can see red, the red triangle that's going upwards. It's got a green background. That is the fire triangle. The air one's next to it with the yellow, and it's actually got a purple background. You probably can't see the purple. And then you've got the water, which is the blue triangle. Is there an ad there? Because I just saw YouTube go and throw an ad in there. I wasn't quick enough to stop it. And then next to the water, so the water is the blue triangle facing downwards with the orange behind it. And then there is the earth triangle, which you probably can't see because it's a bit dark. It's got the black on the khaki green at the back. So you could put those elements at the 4 points of your room, or just have them out when you are setting up a circle and then put them back wherever you keep them again. An altar, because it's representing the element, is going to probably be decorated with images and representations of that element. So, for example, you could put a crystal and a bowl of salt for your earth altar, or you could just use dirt, or you could grab some rocks and put those in either the north or the south, depending on what hemisphere you're in, for the element of earth. You may even work with deities at different elements as well. You might like to work with Cernunnos, for example, as a representation of the element of earth and a guardian of the element of earth. If you're working with air and you're setting up an air altar, you could be using feathers, for example, very common representations of air. Pictures of birds, butterflies. You can have any of those sort of representations there, either pictorially, or you can physically have the feathers there. Incense is a great representation of the element of air as well. For your fire altar, you could have an extra candle there representing the element of fire. You can use color as well. So for fire, you could use reds and oranges there to represent the element of fire, whereas with air, you could be working with the yellows, and earth, the more earthy colors. And with your western quarter, you could be working with seashells and the colors of blue, and even have a bowl of water there, or particular water birds. If you've got statues of various different animals that are associated with the different elements as well, you can put representations of those animals as well. And you may find, when I very, very early in my practice, I discovered that there were particular animals that resonated for me in those 4 quarters as well. And the earth element was a wolf or a cat. It just depended on the time whether it was a cat or a wolf. The air element was represented to me, has always been represented by crow or raven. and the fire element represented by a snake. And the west, for me, is pelican. Even though pelican's a bird, it's a water bird. And I've always had pelican be the representative of the element of water for me. And they've always been around, I guess, particularly where I live, there's pelicans. So you can have animals. You'll find animals may show up at the different locations as well, and they may be different for each and every one of you. You may have different animals that show up for you, different deities that you might also associate with the different directions too. Archangels have traditionally been associated with the different directions, and if you're more into the high magic or the Western magic, you have probably worked with the archangels. If you've ever done the banishing ritual of the pentagram or the invoking ritual of the pentagram or even the hexagram, you're going to be working with with the pentagram, you'll be working with the angels. With the hexagram, you work with the elements and Saturn and planets, I should say. Usually you're banishing Saturn because Saturn's the obstacle. You want to remove the obstacles. Okay. So that's what you can do with your altars, and that can really enliven your magical space if you're able to do that, because every time you walk into that space, you're reminded of the work, you're reminded of magic, you're reminded of spirit, because you're always looking at these altars with the four different elements there. And that can create a sanctuary for you. When you're invoking the elements, that is a ritual in and of itself. And the invocation to the elements is to ask them to protect the circle, essentially. We're wanting to make sure that the energy that is coming into our workspace, magically speaking, spiritually speaking, whatever you're using the space for, is going to be of a high vibe energy and an energy that you want to have. So we ask the elements to protect us from any negativity, any hindrances approaching from those various different directions. And so the watchtowers are there to protect against anything that may be coming from that direction. It's believed that when you do start a ritual or you're starting works of magic, that you're kind of lighting yourself up on the astral plane. And so you may be more attractive to other entities out there or other beings out there. And so the circle is a way of keeping those away. And more than anything, it's a way of setting up a sacred space to keep all the negative thought forms away that may be just simply around, because negative thought forms are around, particularly if you live in a built up place where there's a lot of people, because where there's a lot of people, there's a lot of thought forms. And you may live in a neighborhood that isn't the best neighborhood in the world. And so there could be a lot of negative thought forms around the place, and you want to keep those out. You don't want to be inviting them in and having them influence what it is that you're doing energetically. Okay. Do dragons have a connection to Wicca? Yes, they can. Absolutely. I think there's a lot of Wiccans and witches and pagans who feel a strong connection to dragons and a lot of other mythical beings as well. A lot of people work with the mythical animals for the elements. So you could have dragon for fire in your fire place. There are also in the more Celtic traditions, you can have the dragons that belong to the different elements as well. So there's water dragons, air dragons, fire dragons, and earth dragons. So you could even have those particular dragons as your quarters or as your watchtowers guarding. If you're really into working with dragon energy, you can have them guarding the watchtowers as well. They're great guardians after all. So when you're invoking the elements, it's always doing it respectively, asking them to come and be representative of that particular quadrant that you've given them. So asking the element of air to, I now invoke the element of air in the east to protect this circle and give it the breath of life, and build it in communication, and you can even list some of the attributes associated with that element, particularly if you're doing a particular working and you're wanting to work with those elements. You might want to be working with communication, for example, so you want to state that when you invoke the air element. If you're invoking fire, you may say, I now invoke the element of fire in the north or south, depending on your hemisphere, to protect this circle from all negative energy or entities approaching from the north or the south, and bring to the circle courage and warmth. So you want the element to come and bring something to your circle too. So with air, it may just be the breath of life. With water, it could be warmth. I mean, fire, it could be warmth. With water, it could be washing it clean. With earth, it could be building it in strength. So you're asking the element to protect and also to provide your circle with an aspect of that element that's going to make your circle stronger and, build that circle energetically. And they're the references we use in the Mystery Witch School 101 when I teach the circle casting and working with the elements. We invoke them that way to protect and also to bring something into the circle to build the circle and give it more of a solid foundation in all of those areas. So what about working with the fifth element or spirit? So if you're working with spirit, you're working with sort of spirit, you're representing spirit yourself a lot. When you're working in a circle, the spirit is represented by the deities. So if you're bringing in deities, you're also representing spirit through invoking the goddess and god. If you're working with both the goddess and god, and you can bring in the greater consciousness or the one, if you're looking at the source of all, at the end. So you'd invoke the elements and then bring in spirit after you've invoked the four elements. Working with spirit is something you're working with all the time. And whether you're doing shadow work, whether you're doing magic, when you're connecting to your desire, when you're connecting to the universe, when you're connecting to the energies, you're connecting to spirit. It's not really separate from anything because everything is spirit. Everything's a representation of spirit, I guess. Is probably the only way to explain it. So you're bringing in qualities when you're invoking them, the elements. You can also give the elements kind of offerings as well. And again, this is tokens of what they're represented. So you may bring offering of a feather to air, for example, as a thank you. It's a gratitude. So when we're giving offerings, it's not that they need offerings, okay? The spirit world doesn't need us to offer them anything in the physical world. It's not for them, it's for us. It's to teach us gratitude and the power of gratitude. That the gratitude is a powerful magical device, and we can use that magical device to empower our magic. So when we give offerings to a deity or to the elements, it's not because they require them, it's not because they even want them, it's because it puts us in a state of gratitude. And that is a very powerful high vibe energy to be in. And our magic is more likely to succeed when we're in that high vibration. So it's for us, not for them. May working with the elements be more harmful than working with deities if not done right? Another witch stated that this is another channel and suggested that I stick with the deities. Yeah, you do need to make sure that if you've invoked the elements, that you also give them license to depart as well. So whenever we invoke the elements in a circle, we always say farewell to them at the end and then banish the energy of the element. We never leave the circle open and standing. We always go, and if we've used an invoking pentagram, for example, we always then go at the end and use a banishing pentagram to banish the energy. So if you're working with the elements, you do want to make sure that you are banishing them at the end and sending them farewell. Yes, things can happen. If you have too much of an element, things can go wrong. So if you're working with the element of water, for example, and you're not careful about banishing that energy after you've finished with it, you can end up with water problems. You might find a pipe that springs a leak or something like that. So yes, you do need to be careful when you're working with the elements individually. But if you're working with them in a circle to set up your circle, then, or you're asking them to just simply bless a spell, then we always give them license to depart at the end so that they're not hanging around, so that they're not like deities. Deities, you don't, you say stay if you wish or leave if you must. But with the elements, it's always, now thank you, energy of earth, for attending my circle. Then you could say the circle is now closed. I bid you hail and farewell, or something like that. So you're saying farewell, go, be gone, sort of thing. It's in a respectful way, but it is saying farewell, hail and farewell. And often we'll start with that when we're banishing. Hail and farewell to the element of air in the east. Thank you for attending the circle and bringing these wonderful qualities. And then we banish the pentagram. Funny you say that. I pick up a feeling today, and now the wind is blowing through the window. It never does. I picked up a feather. Now the wind is just answering you. The element of air is just agreeing with you. Okay. So the offerings are just simply gratitude. If you've been working with them, that is. So there's some of the ritual ways that you can work with the elements. The way that you can work with them when it comes to magic is you're working with the earth element when you're working with crystals, okay? Or even just rocks that aren't necessarily crystals or gemstones. Arranging your crystal grids, if anybody does crystal grid work, whether it's for magic or whether it's for healing, you're using those to manifest something. They're associated with the element of earth. So you're working with the earth element in the form of the crystalline energy that's amplifying your intention when you're working with crystals. You're working with the element of earth when you're planting seeds. And sometimes in a spell, you may actually put your intention into a seed and then go and plant it in the ground. You're working with the element of earth when you do that. So you could ask the earth element in your garden or wherever you're planting the seed to take care of that seed and help it grow. Other ways you can work with the element of earth without actually having to go into the earth itself is to work with a spell box. So finding a wooden box and putting a spell in that. So whether that's a petition that you put in there, like a written spell, or whether you put an object in there, like a talisman that you've created that represents your intention, and you put it in the box and you close the box. That is working with the element of earth as well. Even creating a vision board is working with the element of earth, because you're using tangible things like pieces of paper and glue, and sometimes people will put things on vision boards like flowers and things like that. So you could see that as being an earthy element as well, because it's tangible things that you're putting together to create your spell. If you're working with the element of air in magic, then speaking, of course, is one of the easiest ways to work with the element of air. So speaking your spell, your chant, singing your chant, if you want to use singing. You can also use the ash from a burnt petition for in air magic as well. The wind, you can go outside on a really breezy day and whisper your desires to be carried on the wind, and asking the wind to carry those desires to the universe and into the world to manifest. And using breath work as well. So the various different types of breathing can also be used to help you focus on your intention. And you could take an in breath for certain counts, and then on the out breath, You could be chanting either a word or a spell on the out breath, and that's working with the element of air as well, and doing repetition with that is working with the element of air. With fire, of course, candle magic is probably the main go-to fire spell type there. So lighting a candle, and it could be a white candle or it can be a colored candle if you're using colored candles, and putting your intention into the flame of the candle, as well as or putting your intention into the actual candle itself. And then as the flame burns the candle, the intention is being carried out into the world. You can burn your intentions. So your petitions, for example, you can write down your intention or even your spell on a piece of paper, say it, and then burn it. Your sigils or anything that you've created, even your vision board. Even your vision board, if you're just like a little mini vision board, unless you've got a fireplace and you could actually do big fire magic with a fireplace, or you're camping and you've got a fire pit or something and you want to do some magic out. When you're camping, it's a great time to do fire magic. You can then throw things into the fire that representing your intentions, and even your vision boards are probably a great thing to actually put in a fireplace or in an open fire as an intention or as a petition, and working with the element of fire. In Magick, it's not that we have to see things all the time to remind us of what it is that we want. The vision board represents your intention, and by putting your intention into the fire, you're allowing the fire energy and element to carry it out into the world to make it actually happen. You don't have to look at it every day. And a lot of the time in Magick, we don't want to be looking at our spells every day. We want to do it and then forget the spell, forget we've done the spell. We've got to act as if it's already happened. So if it's already happened, we're not going to have a picture of it somewhere. It's going to be all around us. It's not going to be a picture on the wall. So that's a magical way of looking at that. What else? Oh yeah, some people use the sun in Magick. I've never done it, but using the warmth of the actual sun and the light, and very similar to how you would work with the lunar energy if you're doing water magic, working with the lunar energy of bringing down the energy of the moon and then saying your incantation or your spell using that energy and then putting it back out into the universe. You could do that with the sun too, like drawing down the sun is a ritual that is often done at solstices, and taking that energy of the sun, using that to help build your intention, and then putting it back out into the universe is a way that you can use solar energy. Or you can use the sun to charge things up. So you could use the sun to charge a talisman, for example, or even a crystal if you're working with crystals too. So you're combining the elements there, like fire and earth. For water, you can, of course, charge your water. And I've got a few water spells, I think, or at least one where I'm working with water, where you're using water to take away negative energy or to take away cursing energy. It's like it's cleansing, it's taking it away. So you can work with the element of water to visualize your intention. You can put that intention into the water, and then you can either drink the water or you can use that water to anoint candles or anything that you're wanting to anoint, because water can also be used to anoint. You don't have to use oil. If you don't have oil, you could use water as well. You can use water to take away energy too, like a bath, having a magical bath to take away any negative energies, and then allowing the water to then take it away as the water goes down the drain. So that's a bath ritual. Moon water, putting your water out under the moonlight and allowing the lunar energies to be captured by the water, and then using that water in rituals or in spells is a way that you can work with water. You can use water in cooking. If you're cooking with anything that's liquidy, you can be working with the element of water there to help that intention, if you want to put intention into your food, which is a really great way to do healing magic. If you've got any healing intention that you either for yourself or someone else, you can put that healing energy into the food that you're cooking. And water is a great way to do that. Other ways that you can work with the elements apart from magic is meditating with the elements. And this is generally how you'd start to work with the elements anyway. You don't necessarily start working with the elements in magic. You kind of want to get used to them first before you'd use them in spell casting consciously. We use them in ritual from the get-go because you're bringing them and banishing them, but also a part of learning to work with the elements in ritual is learning to experience the elements yourself and working with the elements through meditation and through experience. And this is something, once again, that I teach in the Mystery Witch School 101 Academy. So if you're working with the element of earth, you're working with grounding meditation and stones. So you could sit on the ground, literally sit in the dirt or sit on the grass or sit on a beach and feel the energy of the earth underneath you. Imagine that you've got tree roots growing down into the ground to really anchor you into the ground. It's a way of connecting to the element of earth, observing earth around you, how strong it is, how it's holding you up, how you're sitting on top of it, how it's making you feel safe and secure when you're, really grounded into the earth. You can also work with rocks as well. So if you've got crystals or any old rock, doesn't matter whether it's considered a priceless rock or if it is a rock that you've just found that you just happen to be attracted to, either from a river or from somewhere, you can use that to connect yourself to the element of earth because it is geological life, even if it's not considered precious by the material establishment. It's still containing energy. It still has its own consciousness, its own geological life. So working with rocks and meditating with holding a rock in your hand and just grounding yourself and feeling into the energy of that rock is another way that you can work with the element of earth. With the element of air, it's great if you can be somewhere in nature where there's a breeze at least. It's even better if it's a windy day. You can really feel what it's like to have that air energy, the wind, rushing around you. Otherwise, working with the element of air is the air that you're breathing. We breathe air all the time, so we're constantly can have that experience of what does it feel like as I breathe the air into my nose and into my lungs? What does it feel like to breathe it back out again? That's a way that you can become connected to the element of air. Fire, you can work with fire gazing, so looking into a candle and just watching the flame on a candle. If you are able to have a fireplace or a pit fire somewhere, just doing some fire gazing and feeling the heat of the fire around you. You could go out onto a day when it's a nice sunny day, early in the morning before the UV is too high, and feel the warmth of the sun. That's connecting to the element of fire as well, and meditating on what that feels like. And the water element, run yourself a bath if you've got a bathtub and go sit in it and meditate in the bath, or if you've got a beach or a natural stream or something that you can swim in, as you're swimming in there, or even just standing with your feet in the water, you can be connecting to the element of water and even breathing that element of water. Another aspect of magical practice is balancing the elements within ourselves too, which is a little bit more complex. But it's understanding that we have the elements within us, and sometimes we've got more fire than water, and sometimes we need to balance those. Chinese medicine is all about balancing the elements, and if you've ever had acupuncture or Chinese medicine, you probably, or you do it yourself, you'll know that it's all a balancing act. It's about trying to balance the yin and yang. It's balancing the elements, what elements are needed, what elements are too strong, because we've all got personalities that tend to gravitate towards some elements more than others. If you look in your natal chart in astrology, you've probably got a predominance of some elements more so than others. And so a way of working with the elements is to try and bring more balance. So if you're finding that you're a bit fiery, then and you're getting symptoms of being fiery, for example, sometimes that can mean that you're overheating, headaches, migraines, dryness, like dry skin, dry eyes, can be a sign that there's too much fire. And so you may have to balance that with water. So the way that you would work with the elements is bringing another element in to balance it or to try and decrease that element in some way. So that's used a lot in a lot of energy medicine as well. Okay, I'm just going to go into the comments. How about working with the elements as they correspond to points on the pentagram? Yes, yes. And that's what we do when we're using the pentagrams to invoke them and to banish them, is we work with them that way as well. After you get used to drawing pentagrams, we work with them. And you can dance the elements on a pentagram as well. If you're wanting to use the pentagram as like an outline of a dance, you can walk the pentagram and move in certain ways when you get to the points of each particular element, and then start to gradually change that into the next element as you're walking towards that other or dancing towards that other element. Okay, spirits, ancient ones are always good, but remember to invite in only the ones that are willing to lend energy for the best intentions. Absolutely. Scrying video. Yes. I think I've done a scrying video. I'm not sure. Making sun water. Yes, you can make sun water too. Absolutely. The same as you would with moon water. Tarot killer. Is that like Tarot Destroyer? Is Tarot Killer Tarot Destroyer? Have you changed your name? Let me know if you have, if you're the same person, or maybe you're a different person. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about was if you're wanting to looking at the pentagram, the top of the pentagram is always spirit. So we're on an upright pentagram, we're heading towards spirit. It's always about spirit, okay? And the points on the pentagram are that if you're looking at your pentagram, you're facing it and it's facing you. On your right-hand side, you've got water, and on the left-hand side, you've got air. And then down the bottom on your right, you've got fire, and down the bottom, you've got earth. And so when you're invoking and banishing, if you're invoking, you go to that, you go from spirit to the element, if it's fire or water, sorry, if it's fire or earth. And if you're banishing, you go from the element back to spirit. With air and water, you're going to air from one side to invoke it, and you're moving away from air in order to banish it. So that's how we use the pentagrams to work with the elemental energy. Okay. So if you do want to learn Wicca and Witchcraft with me, I have the Mystery Witch School 101 Academy. It's a 12-month course, and it is there to help you actually learn how to practice the craft. So this is a practicing course. It's a very practical course. It's, there's theory there, but it's mostly prac, because the problem a lot of people have had is that you're struggling to actually practice the craft and not just read about it and just learn about it, because it's through practicing the craft and actually doing it that you get the experience of it, and you get to develop your intuition, you get to develop your feeling of connection. And so the course is to help you do that. We work with the energy, we work with the circles, the elements, work with the lunar energies, the solar sabbats, and also that self-inquiry, that inquiry into the self, and what we call the shadow work, which is just getting to know thyself and getting to know yourself and warts and all, and so that you can learn to love and accept yourself for who you are, and realize that you are a wonderful being, and that you don't have to become this perfect thing in order to be able to be worthy of having the life that you want to have. And so the course is to help you come to that understanding of your meaning in life and your potential. At the moment, I've got an extra bonus going with that school. So not only do you get the 12-month course in Wicca and Witchcraft, you also get a free bonus, which is the Witch's Guide to Magic, and that's a 5-module course in pure magic, working with love and romance, prosperity and money magic, defense and protection magic, as well as health and healing magic. And so you learn all about spellcrafting in both courses, but the Witch's Guide to Magic is particularly about spellcrafting and how you can become better at spellcrafting, particularly if it's spellcrafting areas you're not naturally very good at. Some people are great with money magic, but lousy with relationship magic. And so it lets you understand why that is and what you can do about that. So up until the 13th, which is tomorrow, my time, you can get the Mystery Witch School 101 Academy and the Witch's Guide to Magic, as well as my 5-day course called The Ultimate Guide to Starting a Wiccan Practice That Works, which is just a 5-day daily practice, all for the one price. So I'll put the link to that so you can go have a read about it in the description field and also in the chat. And I do also want to say that there's a lot of people in my course that aren't Wiccan. It's while I use Wicca as the form or the outline to it, it's not falling within that whole regimented, institutionalized framework of Wicca. I used the form that I was trained in, which was a Wiccan form. And there's a lot of people in my course who are simply witches or pagans. And they love the course because it's just helping them practice within a framework. And you can be flexible within that framework. So even if you find that Wicca isn't your path, or you're in the course and you find that Wicca isn't what you want, you can still be practicing witchcraft and still working with those things to be able to really connect you to who you are. And from there, you can go to other traditions if that's something that interests you too. So it's not just for Wiccans, it's also for witches. Okay. So thank you, everybody, for coming along. I look forward to seeing new people and the old people in the Mystery Witch School 101, especially on the Zooms. Another aspect of that course too is that we meet up twice a month over Zoom to celebrate the new moon and the full moon, and also to do guided meditations. So there's a lot of guided meditations in the course because they're a wonderful way of connecting with your intuition and connecting with yourself, and really feeling like you're getting the messages coming through from your own connection to your guides and also just simply to your higher self. So there's a lot in that course for people. So I look forward to seeing everybody in that course. And it's a wonderful time to do things now. We've got, the age of Aquarius is really ramping up, and the old is sort of dismantling, and it's a great time to really knuckle down and focus on the path and focus on where you want to be and what the meaning of life is for you, because we're being told from all different directions who we should be and what we should be and what we can say and what we can't say and what we're supposed to think and what we're not supposed to think. And nobody's allowing us to be who we truly are and just walking our path. And so we need to do that. So yes, thank you, Joe. Thank you, everybody. And I will see you next week. Blessed be.